Okay, we're going to do something today. Now, most of you know that I do a lot of carvings that are just stand still and stuff, but I like to create scenes. If we just created a scene of a snow scene with a guy standing next to a sign. I'm out in the garage here, so if you hear a little noise and stuff, it's going to be all right. But and you're probably going to hear some birds and stuff, but I like to create little scenes. I love to do that with my carvings. And you can create them with a lot of little different things, in other words. And what I want to create today is a scene with two older men looking at a motorcycle and dreaming of their younger days, or perhaps their younger days that they could do. Now, this is going to be a mixture of, this scene is going to be a mixture of two things. It's going to be a wood carvings, two small men that I'm going to carve, and then I'm going to use a toy motorcycle as the thing that they're looking at. Now, I went down to Walmart and bought what this is. This is just a little Adventure Force, they call it, little motorcycle. It's probably only about 2 inches high. And so this is going to be perfect. You can turn the wheels each way. In other words, they make toys now that are just pretty amazing. But this is just a little thing. I think it costs $3 or $4 or something like that, real cheap. So this is going to be part of the scene, in other words. And the other two part of the scene is going to be two guys looking at it, two older men looking at it. Of course, perhaps dreaming of the days that gone by now that they can no longer drive motorcycles and stuff. So we're going to create two older men as we do that. Now, what you have to do is figure out about how tall on scale this little motorcycle, which is about 2 inches tall. This little fella is about 3 inches tall. So this would be about the size that standing next to the motorcycle he would be, or maybe even a little bit taller. But it really doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be just exact scale or whatever it is. So this little guy here is measuring about 3 inches tall. Is what we're gonna have him. Yeah, he's a little. He's just a little bit more than 3 inches. Oh, he's about 3 inches. Okay, yeah, he's. That's that top part I didn't cut off, so he's going to be 3 inches tall. And now, I've carved many of these little guys and stuff like that, but it's such an enjoyment carving them and putting them in scenes and doing things like that. I'm sorry, I've got to find me a pencil here. This old woman I've been working on, just kind of doing. Let me find my pencil here. Here we go. Here's one. Gotta reach down there and kind of get it. So this is going to be our scene. That we're going to carve here. We've carved a lot of these little guys. In other words, I cut him out because there's no use in going the long way. I mean, of simply carving out of a block of wood. I do cater more to the people who have bandsaws and stuff like that, and because I have a bandsaw, and like I said, if I'm going to pay that much for a bandsaw, I'm certainly going to use it. So I'm not going to let the thing sit. And so I just come down here and I first start working on these shoes and stuff. I'm not going to let the thing sit and not be used. That's all there is to it. So I tell you what, speaking of bandsaws, people say, oh, I can't afford a bandsaw. Well, no, you probably can't afford perhaps the more expensive bandsaws. But I was looking on Facebook Marketplace and places like that, in other words, and they have a lot of good bandsaws. They have some old Sears bandsaws that had a horsepower motor and stuff, and some of them they're selling for like $100, $40, $50, things like that. So you know, you can get you a bandsaw and use it and learn to cut. Now, I know a lot of you are in apartments and things like that, and you don't have access to having a garage or something like that where you can put a bandsaw, because a bandsaw is a a storage place. You have to have a garage or something like that. And I often thought, if I ever decided I didn't or couldn't keep up a house anymore, to move to an apartment or move to a place like that, and yet I have a bandsaw. So what am I going to do? Am I just going to sell it and never carve again or use it or do it over? No, I probably wouldn't. One of the things I probably would do is get a outside storage unit, a small one, like a 10 by 10, and it wouldn't cost all that much, and get it with it has electrical outlets in it, and put my bandsaw in there, and then when I want to cut something, I just go there to my storage shed and cut it there. And that would help so much. As you can see, I'm working in between the legs here. But they have a lot of bandsaws on sale that are used and are, in good condition. And to go buy one of those is really not too bad at times, in other words, because a lot of people, when they want to get rid of a bandsaw, they're not, and some people are overpriced, of course. But they don't have to be. A lot of people, I've met people who will sell a used item, that's maybe 6 or 7 years old, and they will almost want the same amount of price for a new one. And that's just absolutely ridiculous. You're just not gonna, people are not gonna pay that much money for a used item when they can go buy it new for another $100. They're just not gonna do it most of the time. So some people do get ridiculous when they sell a used item. I found out when my mother died about furniture. I thought used furniture sold pretty good, but it really doesn't. I learned it from a guy who bought some of the furniture from us, and I sat down and talked to him about how furniture works, and you can have some very exquisite furniture and fancy furniture, and you're not going to get what you think you paid for it. In other words, people are just not going to give something a lot of money for something that's extremely used. So there is a disadvantage. I've always heard that when you buy a car and you drive it off the lot, it's you're losing a lot of money when you drive it off the lot. So when you purchase an automobile, and nobody's ever done it, I thought, where they purchase an automobile and then they come back and try to sell it to the dealer, back to the dealer again, or to someone else. You're just not going to get it. All there is to it. Okay, we're working on the legs down here as we go. I think with this one, I'm just going to put his hands in his pocket. just to make it easy, as we go along. I might turn the head on the next one. I might just do that, just to give it a little thing there. But yeah, we find out real quick that in fact, we sold the furniture in a bulk to this man, and then he turned around and he sold it to someone else for probably not much either. But he told me, he said, you know, we just don't make all that much money. So let's come up here and just separate the head from the body, just like that. But that happens a lot. You know, you just kind of you separate. Used things do not go for very good. It's kind of like what we were talking about when it came to carvings. Okay. At one time, handcraft meant something to people, but handcraft doesn't mean a whole lot to people anymore. I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything to people, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to move my back a little bit. So it doesn't mean as much to people anymore. We're just kind of doing out the. So you're not going to get the price that you want from people that don't consider it worth the price. We've talked about Harbor Freight. The tools at Harbor Freight are inferior to most tools. They really are. Now, I'm not saying they're bad tools. I'm not saying you can't use them. But most of their stuff is more inferior to, you know, DeWalt or Rockwell or Rigid or many of the tools that you buy inside Lowe's or Home Depot or any kind of a store, especially DeWalt, you know, or something like that. But if you don't use the tool a lot, then people don't mind going to Harbor Freight and buying that tool if it'll last them a little while. So the mindset is totally different today than what we did, and it's same thing with used things. People are not willing to, when people have a garage sale, people that come to garage sales are not willing to pay big money for items. They're just not willing to do it. People want deals. That's what I'm trying. That's the word I'm trying to say. People want deals. They want to get deals. They're looking for bargains, as we commonly say, when they go to a garage sale. So they're not looking for exquisite items, but they're looking for good deals. Something that they can buy at a cheaper rate and you know, get what they can. So it's just that way, okay? And I know it's not easy. It's not, but it's what the world is right now. We were talking about that the other day to some people who just totally different things of how things have changed. How you know, used to that, well, we have two people working now, where you just at one time when I was growing up, the woman, my mother didn't work well, she worked a little bit, but not anything like what these women work today. So it's a different world. And it's just like carving. Has carving bewildered because nobody wants to carve anymore? Or is it just bewildered because times are changing and it's a fast-paced society and carving is a slow-paced hobby? You know? I think there's all these things you must take into consideration of what is going on inside the world today. And, we all know, those who have lived a long period of time, we all know that we're not going to get the same aspect of what happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 50 years ago. Times are changing. People are changing. I was having coffee with a man this morning, and we were just discussing food. We were discussing a time when we were growing up, that you ate your meals at home, and your mother cooked and did all those type of things, and that going out to a restaurant was a pleasure. It was something you did just every once in a while. Where now people every day, because both people work, a lot of times go out to eat at restaurants. Now, maybe I better not get into the other discussion we were talking about, but it because I don't want to offend people, but I mean, we were basically discussing how, and this is a problem that the world had, is the obesity that we have today. And one of the problems I felt that we do have obesity is because that people are eating fast food all the time. There's some people that eat fast food 3 times a day. They eat it for, they get a McDonald's, biscuit and egg and all that stuff for breakfast, and then they eat a Chick-fil-A or something like that for lunch, or one fast food restaurant, and then come dinner time, well, the mother is worked all day and not cooking, so it's Taco Bell or somebody like that. And all I'm doing on each side is I'm just putting his hands in his pocket as he's looking. And so naturally, this is a product of our times. I was talking to him about the fact that when I was a young man, if you were 6 foot tall, you were a pretty good sized guy. And naturally, if you weighed 200 pounds, you were a big guy. But now, these kids, some of these little football players, they're weighing, they're 6'4", 6'5", and weighing 280 pounds. And just brutes. So we've often talked about the fact that why is things changed like this so much? It's even in the women, we talked about it. That girls, 11-year-old girl, when she was 11 years old, excuse me, she looked 11. But now they look 15, they look 16, they look 18. Why? Well, we think it has a lot to do with the food that we eat, the hormones that are put in chickens, and because if you ever raised chickens, and my dad had chickens, and we saw that chickens did not grow that quickly. But now, because they feed them hormonal food and those type of things, and then we turn around and eat them, I think that has a whole lot to do with how, the bigger kids and the bigger things and all that other stuff, and so now we may be very wrong, but we're not, you know, I've never seen such big kids in my life. I mean, you know, it's just, you got a 15-year-old kid over here that's 6'2", you know, and stuff like that. So, is that unusual? Yes, yes, it is unusual. It's unusual that these kids are that big. So, it is. Anyway. It's just, like I said, we may be wrong in a lot of this thing, but we feel that it's that way. Just going around him and just putting his arms in and all that other stuff, and but the key is, you know, these things are, you have to think about these things. Now, I know people don't really sit down and have conversations anymore, but since I've been retired, I really enjoy sitting down. I don't drink coffee anymore. I can't with my gastritis, but, you know, having some tea and something like that, and sitting and talking with guys. We go over to a place and we have coffee and or per se tea or whatever, and we sit and just discuss things, and those things are pretty, you know, we see those things as we go. So I'm just saying that, all right, we've getting there. He's doing good. He's got his hands in his pocket, and he's looking at the motorcycle. Just see, notice the little hat. I'm not going to put a hat on him. I'll put a hat on the next guy, but I'm not going to put a hat on him. And but we talk about those things because it kind of amazes us that when we were young people, when I was a young man, and I'm just going to say this, okay? I did not see the obesity